All right, so this week's Tank Talk is going to be about various video encoding technologies. And so if you have nothing to do with any of that, you don't care at all about how streamers are encoding their videos to upload into Twitter or any of the content creators, what's going on out there, then this video you probably won't care too much about. But I've been using OBS, or the Open Broadcaster software, for a couple of years now probably, and I learned enough about how to use it at first to make it function, and that was about it. I didn't really go through the process of optimizing it and figuring out, okay, exactly what settings are going to give me the optimal performance. Well, just a little bit of reading, then I went out and I looked through different websites and looked at different boards where people were talking about it. And in a lot of ways, it actually confused me even more, which I guess is often the case because you've got people out there who aren't experts that are talking, and you don't really know whether the person you're reading their write-up about something, whether they actually know anything or not. Same's true with me right now. I don't probably know as much as what other people would on it. But as somebody that is slightly technically inclined, I'll say I wanted to go through and figure out what's the best solution for me. In conventional logic, I've learned over the years is that the more you can push off software types of encoding over to a hardware solution, that's usually viewed as a good thing. And that was what some of my reading conflicted on, was that it was saying, well, no, actually using the software encoder is better. Well, part of the reason for that is the software encoding is taking place on the CPU. The hardware in this case is taking place in the video card. So right away that begins to throw up I'll call it the red flag of, well, if you have a really good video card and a so-so CPU, well, then you probably want to do hardware, and then vice versa. And in my case, I'm running an i7 4790K, and I'm running a 1070 Ti video card. And they seem to be matched pretty well together. Just in the last 6 months or so, actually the Ti didn't come out that long, maybe 5 months, it seemed to be working pretty well. That there's plenty of headroom with both of them. But I'm wondering in this case with the encoding of the videos, which is going to be my optimal solution. So jumping back to the montage from the intro, what you saw here in progressive order actually was a move from the lowest bitrate settings of software encoding to the highest quality hardware encoding settings. So now let's go through and look at this in a little bit more detail. As I like to do, I took the data I collected and I put it into a spreadsheet, and then I created a PDF off of that to make it look nice and pretty for this video. So here you have, in order of file size, what my results were. Now keep in mind, the file size here wasn't precise. Sometimes the encoder may have run slightly longer. I did not control that specifically, but generally it's a logical buildup here. First thing to note, the red items are where there was a problem. And typically it was that it would start to, what I'm calling jitter. It would start to shake. There'd be breaks in it. It wouldn't be smooth video anymore. So we have here which type of recording, was it hardware or software, which algorithm, which follows that perfectly, NVENC, that's NVIDIA's encoder, and then the x264, that's the software encoding that's happening on the processor. We have a mixture here, some are 1080p, some are in 2K, and then the encoding quality, this is OBS's terminology for the different types of encoding levels you can set it at. Then we have the bit rate. Bitrate applies to when you are using the streaming settings, and we'll click over and look at that in a little more detail here in a moment. But you can either take the exact content from your stream and put it into a file, or you can separately be streaming and be creating a file. And so down here, the NAs, that would be the latter, where we're creating a separate file. the file size and then the comments. The FPS figures here, that refers to what World of Tanks was showing me in-game for a frame rate on average while I was doing the recording. All of the recordings you see here were done at 60 frames per second. My goal is to be able to upload most of the content that I do and videos I've posted as of late. They are all done at 2K at 60 frames per second. And I'm hoping this gives me a little bit of future proofing that videos that I create now will continue to look good going into the future as 2K and 4K become more commonplace. So, as we move through here, generally you will see video quality going up. However, when we run into issues with jitter, that means it was an unwatchable video. So with software, once I went up to the fastest setting, and if we click over here for a moment and we look at the, turn this off, instead we'll look here at, that looks kind of fun, doesn't it? Look here at the settings, we can see that under output, we have the video bitrate setting, and then we can set the software encoding, and then the encoder has various levels of speed to it. And what this effectively ends up being is the ultra fast will be the lowest quality, but the CPU will be taxed the least, and then down to slower is where the CPU is taxed the most. My problem was once I got to, I believe it was faster, that's when I started to run into problems. On the other side, as long as we're here, when you do hardware, then you have high quality, high performance, and then these various lows with different levels of latency. This I did not have much trouble. I could run high quality on the hardware encoder, had no issues with it. So once you've selected your encoding, then you can start to play with the bit rates. And so the bit rate, I've told it I want to enforce the streaming service bit rate limit, in which case this bit rate I set here, it will not allow it to go over it. As such, when you're shooting 2K, you will not get as good of quality at a 10,000 bit rate as what you would at 1080p at that exact same bit rate. Add to that the fact that I'm doing 60 frames per second, which is arguably double above what you would need to have for 30 frames per second, and now just doing that alone would double my bitrate requirements. What it looked like was that video quality at 1080p was about equivalent to 2K at, I think it was 25,000 bitrate. So 1.5 times larger file size. So let's jump out of this, get rid of our infinite view here, and we will jump back to our browser view. So there you can see then those different encoder settings, and then down here at the bottom you have the option of simply recording a file at either high quality, indistinguishable quality, or lossless quality. And by lossless, this file was insane. In fact, it's recorded in such a way that I couldn't even put it into the video that I'm creating right now. It was just way too large. I don't think Windows Media Player would even play it. At indistinguishable quality, it truly did look just like what the game did. But even at that, that's a little bit large to record a less than 1 minute. Some of it was black screen, so let's call it 40 seconds of actual video, and it's already a gig. That'll be a little bit rough. I think what I'm going to do is probably center in on this 379 megabyte file using the high quality setting. So takeaway here was that I was very limited in what I could do with the quality setting running on the software side, the x264. I found I had a lot more headroom and a lot more ability to get performance out of my system using NVIDIA's encoder. So now let's look at some of the individual tests. So first here is the ultra-fast software encoding. this would be the lowest quality of all of the software encoding that I did. Next we move up to super fast, which is just a slightly better quality than the previous one we saw. This is with the very fast preset on the software encoding. This was the highest one I was able to get to work without it starting to fail. Here now is on the fastest setting, and this is where we started to get some jitter. You can see there, this is not pleasant to watch, and that's when I knew I'd crossed the line. Note that up to this point, this has all been done at 1080p. So here's our first 2K content, and this is restricted to a 10K bitrate, and you will find it's relatively jitter-free. Its average is about 58 frames per second, so it looks to be pretty good. But what's interesting is that staying at 2K, 60 frames per second, if I start to jump this up to a 15K, and then going even further up to a 20K, it just keeps getting worse. So now we jump over to hardware. And here's the lowest quality on the hardware at a 10K bitrate running at 1080p. Now we jump up to 20K, again still at 1080p, but at double the bitrate. Going further, now we jump to 2K at a 20K bitrate. And then next we remove the bitrate restriction altogether, still at 2K, but this is just going straight to a high quality file. And then we jump to the indistinguishable quality file at 2K at 60 frames per second. And this is what I found to be the highest usable setting. The next one would be to go to the true 7 GB almost raw format, and that didn't show much of a difference, and it was rather unusable. So there you have it. There's our rundown of the software versus hardware encoding, and I think we found with my i7 where the limit was at, and to be honest, it was not as strong as what the 1070 Ti doing the encoding ended up being. That, in my opinion, quality for quality, you're better off with going the NVIDIA route so long as you have a strong video card. And that'll make more sense for me as well, because then that will keep my CPU a little bit less burdened. So if I have things going on in the background while I'm gaming, there'll still be some CPU available, whereas if I was using all of the CPU, there would be nothing left. So thanks for watching. Hope this was educational. I appreciate if you stuck around to this point in the video. So that's it for today. Thanks. If you enjoyed this content, please click the like button. And if you want to see more content like this, subscribe to the channel. And you can click the notification button that will let you know when new videos come out or if there's any live streams happening. Thanks for watching.